Hey, my name is Dan. I am a type 1 diabetic, have been for a little over 35 years now, and I want to tell you about my experience while I had COVID this past fall and fill you in a little bit. So let's check it out. Hey, that's me. Welcome. Hey, so like I said, it was, let me think, first week of October. So it's been a few months now, kind of pretty much shaking off all of the symptoms of what impacted me. But understanding that COVID affects all of us very, very differently, and even type 1 diabetics differently, yet there might be some carryover. And just to share my story a little bit, if that's helpful as you might be facing similar issues, let's kind of talk through it a little bit. So I was actually going on a 5-day trail hike on the Appalachian Trail, which is pretty wild because that was a big push for me as a type 1 diabetic and have been trying to use it as a means of getting back in shape. But the Sunday we were to leave, I was actually exposed based on some contact tracing, and nonetheless didn't realize it at the time. So two friends and I headed out the trail that afternoon, and we're supposed to be gone until that Friday. By midday Wednesday, my legs were just shot. We were not doing long days. We were just getting to the next sleeping station. So really was going about as conservative as we could. But I realized I was not recovering well at all. And at that point, I could still taste and smell things well. But my legs were probably my first real sign. But I didn't really put it together until after the fact. The next day, Thursday, I felt so bad that we had to call it short and really didn't finish the last 2 days of the hike. Got home Thursday. Friday, this was the real kicker. I had some salt and vinegar potato chips, and I could not taste them, which, is super, super strong taste. So I knew at that point that basically I had COVID. I didn't have a doubt in my mind. So went to a drive-through pharmacy, did the whole nose swipe thing, and called my work. I work at a church. Told them that I was pretty confident that I had been infected, and of course by that point was staying home and did get my positive results back, I think by Monday or Tuesday of the next week. Took a little bit longer because of the weekend. This is kind of how it all played out for me. Like I said, the smell and taste thing was really the strongest symptom, and that lasted for a while. I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but really I was very achy and pretty much sleeping twice as much. I would wake up from a normal night's sleep, be good for a few hours just to kind of putz around the house, but right back to bed for maybe a 2-hour nap, wake up for 3 hours, go back down for an hour, and then wake up, finish the evening, and go back to bed again for a full night. And that kind of carried through for a few days. But I wasn't in a ton of pain, and I didn't have as bad of symptoms as some talk about. Never really got a fever. And I did get an oxygen sensor. They recommended that for me from my doctor. They're pretty cheap. They're like, $20. I can put a link in the description below just so you can see what one looks like. I was really surprised they're that cheap, actually. I've always thought that was kind of fancy technology when I'm at the hospital or something like that, getting a checkup, and that a laser is checking my oxygen level, but you can have one for less than $20. So that was kind of cool to know, and I'm glad I was able to get one. It was about a week in, though, that my symptoms really got as bad as they got. Friday, Saturday, and half into the next Sunday there, I was beat. I was just so achy, so tired. Was only up for a few hours a day. Again, no stomach symptoms, a headache, but just my body was so worn trying to fight the virus. And then about 3 days out of it, say Monday, Tuesday, and into Wednesday, really got back on my feet and was back to work 2 weeks after I had tested positive. So did take the full 2 weeks and really needed it. And that's kind of how it was for me. So I can't say how it compares to non-diabetic because I just am a diabetic. That was my experience. I do know that I'm more susceptible to infection. Not just because I've seen that on the internet, but I can experience that. It seems as though if something is going around, I tend to be kind of on the short list of folks who might get it. I don't let that affect my day-to-day living too much. I don't take a ton of precautions. I try to wash my hands, and I've had sanitizer around for far longer than just the COVID season. But at the same time, life's for living, and I'm a diabetic, and this is the life I've got. This is the cards I've been dealt, and I'm going to play them. So I don't really try to treat that as though it's something I need to avoid living for. But I do recognize that if I get an infection or something like that, it's going to last longer, and I have to deal with it with some care and perhaps a little bit quicker response than I would if I wasn't a diabetic. The one thing that really carried out the longest, and it's funny how it ties back to type 1 diabetes, is I couldn't smell anything for much longer than 2 weeks. And then maybe about week 4, more smells started coming back, and I could smell sweet things, or my wife loves to bake, so be able to smell things like that. But the one thing that was interesting that I didn't smell was insulin. Insulin has a very, very recognizable smell to me. I can smell it if I have a leak or an issue with my insert on my pump. I can smell that pretty quickly. And sometimes it's awkward, but I can smell it on other people. If they've just swapped out their pump or they still have it on their clothes or some such, I can tell that they're a diabetic. So that's kind of a weird little thing, but maybe that's the case for you too. It's actually phenol, which is kind of a stabilizer they put into the insulin to help it stay antiseptic, and it's kind of a disinfectant, I guess. The reason I looked it up and could kind of agree with that assertion is that it smells like Band-Aids to me. It's a chemical they use for other things like that, like medical supplies and such. So to me, like a new Band-Aid just being opened, to me reminds me a lot of that insulin smell. And I could not recognize that for probably another 2 months, which was crazy because that has such an emotional tie in my mind of, oh, this is that liquid that keeps me alive. And I have to fill my vial every 3 days or so. And there's always a little bit of leaking. You have to prime the tubing and such. And I couldn't smell it. So that was weird. But that's back now. And I think I still might be a little bit more tired than I was before COVID. But who knows? I'm also getting older. So maybe that's just life catching up in some ways. And it's hard to say. But I would say that I used to be able to cheat and get like 6.5 hours of sleep and still make it the next day okay, and maybe catch up the next day. But now I'm pretty much catching close to 8 with regularity, and if I don't, I can tell the difference. So that's what's going on. I hope that my body is continuing to fight. I feel pretty good, back to work, and like I said, have been for months now, and that's been my experience. So if that's helpful to you, I hope that it can be an encouragement. I know as a type 1 diabetic, you can sometimes feel a bit more exposed to things. Just hang in there, give your doctor a call, keep him posted or her posted, and make sure you're doing what you can to take care of yourself. And love to hear from you if you want to make any comments below, or even if you'd be so kind as to subscribe or click on any of the links below for possible affiliate links we have for places to get your supplies. They're great deals, and frankly, it helps me out to keep the channel going. And also, you can click on one of the links to the side here to hear more about my story as a diabetic and my experience with it, and hope it's an encouragement to you. Take care. We'll see you on the next video. Bye now.